Hey everybody, Jay Niblick here with WiseHire. Today's Growth Talks episode, we've got Chris Waters. And Chris, we talked a lot about all the stuff we know about you and everything, but I think it's best, even though it's sometimes awkward, for you to tell us who you are, where you're coming from, because you can do it the most justice. So I'll preface it by saying these Growth Talks, we find subject matter experts and leading industry thought leaders to say, what do you know about this area with regard to talent? Because that's what we do at WiseHire. And we think that Chris is the guy to talk to you about a lot of things we're going to talk about on today's call. But Chris, a little background maybe on where you are, what you do, how'd you get started?
Yeah, so I'm from Austin, Texas. Graduated college, had a lawn mowing business to pay my way through college, and one of my most pain in the butt customers was in the real estate industry, and I was going on job interviews, and he encouraged me to think about getting into real estate sales and real estate brokerage. And so I was 21 years old at the time. You know, it's that $1 million question when you're trying to graduate college. What are you going to do with your life? And so I said, what the heck? So I went and got my real estate license, and I worked on this team at a big brand name company here in Austin. And I was there about, 4 or 5 months. And, just to be totally honest and transparent, I was not very coachable or humble at that point in my life. I thought I was doing pretty well. I paid my way through college with my lawn business, and I sold my lawn business for a pretty good amount of money.
I can't believe there's an entrepreneur out there that was uncoachable. I mean, hell, that's why all of us started our own companies, because we were horrible employees.
Well, I tried. I don't have any experience building a sales team. I've never been a sales manager. I'm not a motivational speaker, none of that stuff. And so my first year of recruiting people, I brought in 20 salespeople. And in that 12 months, so like I spent the summer of 2010 recruiting agents, and the subsequent 12 months between me and these 20 other people, we only sold 98. I should say, some people might think this is a lot. We sold 98 homes between the summer of 2010 and 2011. And
across 20 agents, though.
Yeah, exactly. So like basically me and one other guy sold 80 of those. And the other 18 agents sold 18 houses. So I was like, man, number one, I don't know what to look for in people. I don't know how to train people. Overall, I was like, man, I suck. Like I don't know what I'm doing. So, I spent the next probably 3 or 4 years just like obsessing on the recruiting and selection process, because I think kind of the old adage, thing you hear from people is, there aren't any good workers out there. It's so hard to find talent. Like you hear every single business owner say this. And like I witnessed it for 12 months, and it was very, very, very painful. And so I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I started getting my hands on every book I could find. I got into sales coaching so I could learn how to train salespeople around scripting, objection handling, things like that. And then, spent 3-4 years of just obsessing on that recruiting and selection process. Kind of what I've discovered is like, you could hire somebody that was highly driven and and coachable and had very specific core values. And if all those things were in alignment, even if I sucked as a trainer, they were going to find success. But then like, if I found people that, they valued flexibility, and, they tell me all about, they want work-life balance and all these kind of things that, I learned to run for the hills when I would hear people say that, because I'm like, man, you're never going to make it in real estate if you expect to be on a beach every other weekend, or be able to retire in 12 months. So anyways, some of the books that really inspired me, there was one called The Rare Find.
Yeah, how it stands out. Yep.
So the key thing, kind of the thesis of the book, The Rare Find, is that, you don't actually see how somebody's going to perform until you see them in action. And so the more you can set up like these mock type environments where they're going to be doing something that's very similar to their job, the more likely you are to be able to weed people out and find out who's going to succeed, versus just having a conversation with somebody face to face when they present their best self. So that was a huge aha for me. So we do a lot of role playing now as part of our interview process. There's just a couple key things we do when we meet somebody face to face. The role play is definitely one of them. The second thing we go through is what's called a core values questionnaire. So we try to just try to understand people, like what drives them. Like we ask them questions like, if you could have any any value or attribute about yourself individually, just have more of it instantly, boom, you've got it. What is it? That kind of helps. You may identify a weakness in somebody, or you might identify a strength. Someone's like, man, I have so much drive. I just always want more and more and more. Or they might be like, man, I wish I had more confidence. Like I'm always anxiety ridden, and I'm real nervous in front of people. And then you're like, oh, geez, well, you should not be in sales.
The ones that are listening to this, the other team leaders or people that want to create teams, what would you say the average number of minutes or hours is that somebody puts into interviewing their next buyer agent?
Oh man, it's not nearly enough.
Or any role, admin, TC, ISA, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the average amount of time somebody in real estate spends vetting out a potential hire would probably be about an hour and a half, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I've seen it be under an hour. I've seen
Yeah.
people, they got 4 minutes to look at a resume. They like it. They schedule a phone screen. That was 15 minutes. And then they come into the office for an hour, for 30 minutes or whatever, have lunch, if they're,
Yeah.
so you're getting married to somebody in all reality, you're going to spend the majority of the time during the week with them. It's kind of like some TV series, 90-minute fiance or something. It's like I spent an hour and a half with you, and I'm going to give you such a pivotal role. And in big corporations, that's not a problem because you can hide poor performance because there's 1,000 employees. But when you've got 1 or 10 or 20 people in the team, that's a monstrous problem. So resumes, we know, aren't great. We know that interviews, an hour or two of interview time, people can stand on their head for an hour. They don't necessarily have to be that same person. A big problem with interviews we find is your personality tends to like other personalities that are like yours. So depending on the role you're hiring, let's say you're hiring an ISA, it's a lot more structured. It's dialing 150 FISBOs a day. It's keeping notes. It's following, so you have to have a higher S and a C to be able to do it than maybe a super aggressive type A, outside hunter gatherer. You interview this person and you go, the other next person comes in and they have the same traits that you do. And you go, I like them. They like the things I like. They're motivated by the things but then you put them in a role that you wouldn't want to do any more than they do.
Yep.
So I really want to dig deeper into, we've got the personality that we do. We look at the personality assessments, the DISC and the values, and we're helping those intangibles.
Yep.
25%, maybe a third max of the hiring decision.
Yeah. I can't.
All the time is what you're saying, which is don't just look at the profile, look at the resume, interview them for an hour and go, I like them. Okay. Dig deep into your role plays. Cause I think I agree with you. In the military, we had different evolutions. We had like a 64% attrition rate in many of the schools that we had. And until you see people actually go do it, you don't know whether they will or won't fail. This is before you make an offer. This isn't a 90-day probationary period. You're talking extensive role playing. How much do you do? How many hours, or is it?
Yeah. So I'll take it kind of from the top. So when we meet somebody for the very first time, when whoever is interviewing that person, what I tell my kind of key leaders is when you walk into the interview, just spend the first 5 minutes building rapport and asking yourself, how does this person make me feel? Like very simplistically, how do they make me feel? Because when you give that person a lead, when they work on the team, they're going to make the leads you give them feel the same way. So that's like step one. How do they make you feel? Step two is we try to dig into this. We call it a personal narrative, and it's basically kind of their story. We try to dig out of them from when they graduated high school till current day. And what we ask them is, tell me, year by year, what was the major event? What did you learn? What did you earn? Was this a positive or was this a negative year? And you go by year, and it's mind-boggling when you do this exercise. It takes a while, but when you go through this exercise, what you discover is there's like 50% of the stuff they speak about verbally that's not represented in their resume. So the third thing is the core values questionnaire. And then fourth is when we actually do the role play exercise. So we tell them, look, hey, just real quickly, we're going to do a quick role play exercise, right? Here's the scenario. You are the agent, and I'm a homeowner, and my house just failed to sell after being on the market for 6 months, and you are applying for a job, to get me to hire you as the agent. And I do not like realtors right now because my house was on the market 6 months. I spent every weekend getting my house ready for showings and getting out of there, and it was just completely miserable. And you're interviewing for a job to get hired to sell my home.
I like the way you put that, by the way. I get awarded the business. I'm interviewing for a job, not making a sale. That's an interesting, and people listen to that, make a note of that as you're listening to this, everybody, because I think that speaks to a very different mindset. I'm not going to go land this necessarily or hunt and fish for it, which is important. But that I just wanted to stop for a sec, not to interrupt you too much, but make a note of that because you're interviewing for a job when you're an agent. I'll come back to it. I'll let you finish, but I want you to dig in on that a little bit as to what's different about the attitude of that person that sees it that way.
Well, so basically, like whether you're hiring an inside salesperson or a listing agent or buyer's agent, the whole goal of this role play exercise, like, you can tee up the scenario however you want. It really doesn't matter. Like whenever you do your role play exercise, what you're trying to dig out of them is you're trying to understand how they respond to objections. So there's basically three types of people out there from an objection handling perspective. There's the first type is the person that just shuts down. Like you get an objection, for example, I say, you know what, you're just not what I'm looking for in an agent. Thanks for coming by. It was great getting to know you, but you're not what I'm looking for. So that the person just shuts down and shakes your hand and is like, all right, thanks, bye. The second person gets diarrhea of the mouth and they start talking about how great they are. They're like, well, Mr. Seller, I'm number one in the neighborhood. Like I'm one of the best in the industry. You should go talk to your neighbor. Like I know I'm going to get your house sold. And they just won't shut up. They like keep
Show up
talking.
and throw up, we call it.
Yep, exactly. So that's number two. And number three is the person that comes back with a question. So I shut them down and I'm like, you know what, you're not what I'm looking for. Thanks for coming by. And they're like, well, wait a second. If you don't mind me asking before I leave, could you tell me what is it you are looking for in the person you hire to sell your home? And so your whole goal is, in salespeople, like you're trying to find somebody with this natural inquisitive mindset and curiosity type mindset where they come from a consultative question-based type, mindset. That's the type of person that's going to naturally have much more success. And that can be a really hard thing to train in people. So there's people that are some people that are just more naturally more curious. And if you're in the real estate business, like you don't have a lot of time to like try to train people to be salespeople. Like if you're going to start giving them leads and technology and, all these resources at your expense, like you need them to hit the ground running. You can't spend, 6 to 12 months making them great salespeople because you need to spend 6 to 12 months teaching them how to be a great real estate agent.
Yeah.
So, in the real estate industry, ideally, if they don't have sales experience, at least you need to find somebody that comes from that curiosity mindset and asks questions when they get shut down. So
take it in that direction for a minute. What's your philosophy on hiring outside the industry versus the people that say, I'm back up real quick. How involved, give me like an actual number of hours that you're talking about? Because one of the biggest mistakes we hear is the guy that says, look, I just want to hire a couple agents. I don't have a lot of time. Can you do all the work for me? And then I want to look at them and real quickly, they have to hit the ground running. I don't want to have to do anything. And they want to spend that hour interviewing them, look at the resume and go, you're hired. How many hours are you putting into making the decision on this individual?
So, we will make hundreds of calls to applicants and narrow it down to like, 20 people in a given month that we meet face to face. And then out of those 20 people we meet face to face, we actually only greenlight 5 of them. And then out of those 5, we only keep 1 of them over the course of 90 days. Okay. So if you think about, people in real estate understand like the funnel, right? You generate leads online and you're going to get some of them with good information and then you're going to get some of them on the phone. And then at the very bottom of the funnel, you get your closings. Well, it's like there's very much like a funnel when it comes to recruiting and selecting talent. And
Oh yeah.
I remember reading Gary Keller's book, The $1 Million Real Estate Agent, when my mom bought it for me in 2006. And Gary said in the book, you're in the lead generation business. If you want to be the $1 million real estate agent, you're in the lead generation business. And so I think when Gary published that book, that might have been the case in the 90s. I was still in high school, so I have no idea, but I think that was the case back in the 90s. You're in the lead gen business. But nowadays, like in the last decade, you can bolt on lead generation. So like Zillow is a lead generation company. Realtor.com, there are these social media marketing platforms like Ylopo, CRMs that do your pay-per-click advertising and search engine optimization.
Oh, sure.
So we're not really in the lead generation business anymore. There are these bolt-on companies you can get that do lead generation. Like for example, if it's your sphere of influence to get referrals and stuff, we leverage a company called Viral Marketing. They send out our email blast, gives us data on who's opening our emails, etc. So you can bolt on all this stuff now. And you could also hire an inside salesperson to do outbound prospecting. So really, like, you're actually in the business of finding the who. It's not lead gen, it's finding the who to convert leads. Back to the whole the funnel example I was mentioning earlier. So like the way our 90-day funnel looks is basically between day 0 and day 30, there's only one key thing we're really paying attention to. And it's how each new agent makes one another feel. So like I tell the trainer or the sales team leader to just observe. Like we have this whole 30-day program where we teach them scripts and how to use systems, and they spend the afternoons on the phones. So it's not like we just watch them, but we want to see like how are they interacting with one another. And in that book, Culture Code, they give examples of like when you think about teams that are in the zone, if you will, there's very specific behavioral cues you see among team members. So like, for example, high fives, holding the door for one another, hugs, giving each other compliments, like these very minute behavioral cues can exhibit things that can help you understand as a sales leader if this group is going to be successful. When you're trying to develop culture, you're trying to get a group of people that have that like magnetic personality that other people want to be like, so that people jump out of bed and come to the office. Like it's kind of like that movie Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's like everybody in there is super high energy, and it's like a crazy environment, and everybody's just on the phone crushing it, trying to sell and find success. And so when you bring people in groups, you get to see how they interact with other people on your team. And you're going to find those people that are very negative. Like they always sit back with their arms like, and they never come from a place of contribution, and they're always like questioning things, and they have this vibe about them. Like, they repel people. And so that's really the key thing we look for in days 0 through 30. And then, everybody's heard, probably, I think most people have heard there's a new study that says it takes 66 days to build a habit. So for salespeople, you're trying to just find people that are very perseverant, committed, they can stay focused, and they're not going to give up. And so you don't actually find out if they have those qualities until days 60 through 90. So, the funnel, if you will, what it looks like is in the first 30 days for us, we usually cut one person because they're so negative. Like they're that negative cancer, and they bring the group down from an energy perspective. And then in month 2, you start, seeing people like not show up. Like literally they'll have an excuse as to why they can't come in one day. And we tell them in the beginning, if you miss one day, you either have to start all over or you're out. So like you'll start to see people, kind of cut out days 30 through 60. And then another key attribute you'll notice 30 through 60 is who's coachable, because you go through all the basic training in the first 30 days, and then 30 through 60, they're starting to implement, and you're giving them feedback, and either they're going to be coachable and implement, or they're going to be like, they're not actually going to take action and do what you say. They're going to question it, and they're like, yeah, that's not going to work, or they're not going to like consistently do what you're saying. So you kind of you start seeing if they're coachable 60 through 90, 30 through 60. And then the last 30 days is all about they're how fiercely committed they are and how perseverant they are to all the challenges they're going to be seeing, and are they developing that habit of showing up and the best practices for lead follow-up, et cetera, et cetera. So sorry, I wanted to expand on that.
No, I think it's interesting. You've actually put the military analogy is interesting and very appropriate. Multiple evolutions that have a pretty significant attrition rate. We used to call it DOR, drop on request. People go ring the bell on their own. So you've got people that are voluntarily deciding to either to opt out or to not show up or walk away. So they're pulling themselves out versus, I'm sure there's times when you let somebody go, like you said, or you cut them.
Yeah.
Putting through a crucible where what comes out the bottom is obviously the very best person. What I want to reiterate, and then thank you for, and kind of take a one big lesson from you to kind of leave people with. But I want to really highlight again is the key is everything you're talking about is about finding that best person and all of the effort you're putting in, which is an inordinate amount of effort, by the way, in a good way. We don't see people taking that same kind of mantle and running with it. They don't either want to be leaders of people, then you shouldn't start a team, because you're an entrepreneur starting a business. Really, you're not just the rainmaker that has a bunch of people surrounding them saying, here, take all my leftovers. You need to be a leader of people. What I'm hearing you saying is, and demonstrating is, you have created a system that really truly cares nothing about anything other than who is this individual at their core. What are their natural talents? What are their inclinations? How do they get along with others? But then system after system, your CRM, if you will, your reverse funnel, where everybody goes through a whole lot of levels that I've never seen many other people do. I mean, some of the largest teams we deal with in the country do. But I think it's great lessons to learn. That one big takeaway I'm hearing is focus on the people. Don't just take anybody you can, because you're wasting your time and your money and your leads and your effort and the opportunity cost and the ill will and what it does to the rest of the teammates when you get that wrong fit in there.
Yep.
Big picture, if you left everybody with one key message that we haven't talked about, one key thing, big takeaway when it comes to growing a successful team, what haven't we talked about? What have we missed?
What I would tell people is, I think the shortcut to success, to, figuring out this journey of building a team, if that's the path you want to go down, the shortcut to success is find somebody that's doing it and, either hire them as a coach or somehow, there's that saying, like, you're the average of the 5 people you're around the most. Like, either up your game of the people you're around, go hire a coach, or, go join a system that you can basically duplicate. I remember hearing on Shark Tank one night, Damon John on Shark Tank said, "Pioneers get slaughtered and settlers prosper." So I took that to heart, because I felt like when I heard that, I was constantly trying to be innovative. And the real estate industry and business in general, when it comes to finding talent, like, people have walked this path for decades and decades. Like, why the hell am I trying to reinvent the wheel when lots of people have already done this and achieved massive success? So, you're just a few nuggets of knowledge away from knowing something that will help you, that you can implement, that'll get you where you want to go. So, I'd recommend, getting books, the number one thing would be go get a coach that can help you implement this and model their systems. I think that's the number one thing you can do. That was my big shortcut to success, hiring a lot of sales coaches and reading books. But that's the biggest takeaway. I hope anybody, if you're on this call, like, if there's one thing you do after you watch this, go find somebody that's where you want to be, and, basically copy and paste what they've done. And then once you have a solid foundation, then go be innovative. But build a solid foundation.
Innovation's good. There's an old saying that we used to use: the second mouse always gets the cheese.
Yep.
His first one.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's great.
So, Chris, is there anything that you would want people to go to check out more, learn more about you, or?
Yeah. So, if you're in the real estate industry, I published a book.
Show and tell. There you go.
This is it. The $1 Million Real Estate Team. And it's not like a BS ebook. It's 220 pages. Spent about 1.5 years working on this, and make a long story short, like, I went through all the real estate coaching and I went to all the seminars, and, started having a lot of success. And I had a lot of friends that went to these same masterminds and the same trainings and had the same coaches, and like they were not finding success. And so I started, quietly coaching people. I am not in the coaching business, but I started like, just kind of coaching people I met through the industry and helping them, implement things. And like, as they started following the things I was doing, they started having massive success. And so, I wasn't really connected to the real estate industry for several years. And then I had several people tell me like, hey, you guys did something really special. I've never heard of anybody scaling the real estate team model to netting $1 million and in such a short period of time. And we weren't selling $1 million homes. We're selling like $200,000 houses. So, we had to do a lot of transactions to make that happen. So I had some people tell me like, you should really share your story of what that looked like. And, basically the way the book is written is it's written and I kind of share like these very distinct phases of growth you go through. So there's kind of like a version 1.0, a version 2.0, and a version 3.0. And it's essentially just the growth curve for anybody in the real estate business. And what I kind of identified just through massive failure is there's basically 7 key pillars in a real estate brokerage business. And you have to push different levers specific to those 7 pillars to go from version 1.0 to version 2.0. And the asterisk to that, by the way, is and the one pillar in there that if you can't crush this one pillar, none of the rest matter, is the leadership and scaling pillar. Like if you can't figure out leadership and scaling, none of the rest matter. So anyways, the book, I mean, I share a ton of stuff we did wrong, like lots of stuff we failed at that didn't work. And it was just our journey.
There, Chris.
Yeah, so, this is it.
I think, and these are never meant to be paid intentional plugs or anything like that. But
yeah, man, I'll give this to people for free. So like, if you go on,
go on Amazon and buy the book. I mean, if I can't invest $20 or whatever the price is to have a great business, then stick with being a private real estate agent, independent. Chris has shared some fantastic stuff. We get these questions all the time, and I think his focus has been lasers clear and sharp on people. Make sure you're getting the right ones. Tons of ideas on this call. I'd recommend you go get the book and talk to him and watch the videos and anything else he's got up there, because there's a million other ways that you can understand how to make sure you're getting the right person, and a lot of pragmatic steps or practical steps to make sure you do that. So thank you very much for the time, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
You're busy down there, so.
Yeah, this is on Amazon and Audible. And then if they want a signed copy, they just go to wirbook.com and they can get a signed copy of the book.
Good deal. wirbook.com.
Yep, for a signed copy.
Yep. Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much, man. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next on the next Growth Talks with Weishire.